My job is to tell the story about this family. And if you care about this family, then you'll laugh with them, cry with them, and be scared with them. And I remember it was actually something I learned on The Office. Greg Daniels, who created The Office, I remember he said to me one day, he said, your job is not to deliver these lines funny. Your job is just to deliver the lines. And whether people find it funny, it's up to them. And if people find it sad when you say nice things or cry when you say nice things to Pam, that's up to them too. And I've always taken, it sounds like such a simple thing, but I've really taken that for the rest of my career. So I thought, I'll just apply it to this. I'm not making a scary movie. I'm just gonna make a movie about a family, and if their circumstances scare you, then I've done my job right. It was so much fun to write this movie. I think to me, the idea was so good that then it was just about how far can we take it, how deep can we go, and so the idea of how this family communicates goes from sign language to communicating with different colored lights, and then laying out sand paths so that they can walk more quietly and not step on sticks that would make noise, things like that. It was so much fun to just sort of go for it all the way and see how far we could take it. As I was pitching her ideas that I was writing in the script, she never read the script. She was just hearing these ideas, and then she started listing actresses that she thought would be really good for the part. And I actually even started reaching out to those actresses. And then one day we were on a plane together, and she said, do you mind if I read the script? Are you at that place where I can read it? And I said, yeah, sure. And she read it, and I'll never forget, she turned to me and she looked sick. And so, like, before I could reach for a barf bag, she just said, you can't let anyone else do this movie. And I truly didn't know what she meant. It was kind of like this weird, surreal moment. And she said, I have to play this part. And I said, are you saying what I think you're saying? I thought it's like she was proposing to me or something. And I said, are you saying what I think you're saying? And she said, yeah, will you let me be in this movie? And I was like, I guess. Yes, I guess we can let you in. No, and I've said it before, but the truth is it was the greatest compliment of my career, because I have been witness to exactly what it takes to get my wife to commit to a movie, and how insanely classy she is, how insanely smart she is, how insanely dedicated she is to all these movies that she chooses. Well, I mean, we learned ASL for the shooting, obviously. I think probably my biggest regret of the movie is that we didn't learn ASL all the way, that we didn't just learn this language. And the reason being is I always knew I wanted a deaf actress. That was non-negotiable. When I wrote the script, it had to be a deaf actress, not just because it's the right thing to do, but because selfishly, I didn't think any actress could have the depth and the texture, obviously, of a performance that someone who was actually living through that every day. But even most importantly and selfishly, I wanted a guide through this experience. Having a family that has a deaf child, I didn't want to pretend. I didn't want to put my own spin on it, because I don't really know what that is. Finding Millie is one of the best things that ever happened to this movie, not just because she's a phenomenal actress, not just because she's the wisest, most special, angelic person you can meet, but because she was so giving, and she would say, very unintimidated, she would say, this is how this scene would be, and this is sort of how we'd communicate. Noah was in The Night Manager, and I thought he did such a great job. And in particular, there was this scene, this is how sadistic it is to cast kids for a horror movie. I was like, well, let's see how good he is at being kidnapped, which is, he gets kidnapped in The Night Manager. That just felt weird to even say. And I watched him, and he got kidnapped very well. He did kidnapped real well. And I remember thinking that takes a lot of guts, and it's really hard for a kid to actually access fear rather than portray fear. And so I did the next logical thing, which is reach out to George Clooney, who had just worked with him in Suburbicon. And I remember I emailed George and just said, listen, I'm looking at this kid, Noah Jupe. I think you just got done with him in Suburbicon. Can you tell me anything about him? And he said, what I will tell you, I remember the quote from George was, he's the greatest child actor I've ever worked with. And he said, in parentheses, and I've worked with them all. Being Dr. Ross on ER, I worked with a whole slew of kids. He's the best I've ever worked with, but more than best child actor, he's the best actor I've ever worked with. And he said, and he's the greatest human being, and his parents are the nicest people. You couldn't be walking into a better opportunity. And I thought, that's as good as it gets. And he was absolutely right.